You are listening to Talking Out of Slot. I'm Scott Brownlee, here at home in Sussex.
And I'm Nick, and I'm in Monaco, or Mon-ah-co, as we should say it properly in the Sterling Moss fashion.
Mon-ah-co.
Mon-ah-co.
And Mon-ah-co. I think you should tell people why you're in Monaco.
I'm here for an electric vehicle rally, not the 1/32nd scale type, but the full-size type. It's the 7th round of the Eco Rally Cup. And yeah, it's a regularity rather than the rally. There's no timed special stages. It all has to be done in the local speed limits, and traffic laws must be obeyed at all times. One competitor wasn't last time out in Slovenia, and he got booted as a result.
And what kind of cars? I mean, is it just wall-to-wall Teslas, or what is it? These?
No. It's there are 19 manufacturers this
19?
weekend, because there 36 different types of car. The it's not a performance competition, so it's an accuracy of timing competition. Plus, that's about 40% of the overall score is avoiding penalties for being late or early at the check-ins. The 60% is then weighted on your vehicle's energy consumption. And yeah, interesting. And that then tends to skew the results somewhat. So last time out, there was a local couple in an electric Mini Cooper who came 19th overall in terms of the performance on the timing, but they finished 5th because they used the least energy of anyone. So it's quite hard to work out the results. You can't really predict it. You're sitting there going, oh, they're doing really well, and then it turns out that actually they've drunk an awful lot of energy getting there. So Teslas, big Audis, things like that, they tend to finish quite low down. We had somebody win a round outright in the Czech Republic. It was 2 students, and they were driving the girl's mother's Renault Zoe. Renault Zoes are small and light for an electric vehicle, and so they did really well. Anyway, that's why I'm here, but we're here to talk about slot cars.
Oh yeah, well, you know, it's interesting. I think we should, if you're going to pop up in exotic locations, which I think you have, we should explain.
I promise. So I'm in the what to you and I and most people would be the Lowe's Hotel. It's these days it's the Fairmont, but it is right on the hairpin of the Grand Prix circuit. The tunnel goes underneath us. In fact, from driving here last night, pretty much all the roads are subterranean in Monaco. I didn't see the sky between coming off the auto route and arriving at the hotel. So it's popped out of this hole and went, oh, I'm here. It's like being a mole.
And have you spotted, or have you had a chance to spot are there any Monaco slot car shops? I mean, for all those sort of bored Formula One drivers who are saving all their tax, are they
I am going to investigate that. I haven't yet, and I'm going to have to check out of the hotel because they are holding pretty much my entire life savings as a deposit against me drinking the minibar drive, basically. It's a lot of euros to come and stay here, just as an insurance payment.
Yeah, as we say, at Monaco prices, I would imagine drinking the minibar dry would be quite, or emptying your bank account would happen before you tried the minibar, if you see what I mean. Got that the right
I had a packet of crisps for dinner last night and some minibar, and I'm really nervous about how many slot cars it's going to cost me.
Excellent. Well,
that's 2 slot-its for a packet of bloody salted.
It's just I mean, again, this is perhaps too much for culture. Do you remember there was a comedy series called Stellar Street, which worked on the premise that lots of famous people lived on one kind of ordinary suburban road in London, and it was the various impersonators who did it. It was very funny. So I think Keith Richards ran the corner shop or something, didn't he? That was it.
Yeah.
But so just the notion of David Coulthard and various other Formula One luminaries dropping into the Monaco slot shop to urgently pick up the latest Scalextric's F1 Martini, the Lotus Martini, seeking out somebody to see, is that the right colour? Is it really that green? Anyway, we won't go into colours. I have it in my hand, actually. My exotic adventure, which pales completely in comparison to going to Monaco, was a run down to Arundel, or Ford, to be very precise, which is the name of the... Effectively, I think there's a prison, a pub, and a small railway station, and Gagemaster. So I had a couple of cars that I had to pick up, one of which was find the car, Martini Lotus.
Is it green? Is it brown? Is it green or brown?
It is green. It is green. It is green, and I wouldn't. I'm going to reserve too much judgment on whether it's the same green as it should be, but it's definitely green. What's very obvious is it's very pretty and all that good stuff. Mario is a little too big. His head is above the roll bar. I don't know if you can see that in the shot I'm holding up. So when I open it to remove the magnet, and actually, Scalextric's designer's tip: if you're going to make the magnet that obvious from underneath, can we remove it from underneath? Because that would save me partially destroying my nice Lotus.
They are
so I picked up the
to take apart those things.
It's the closest I will ever come to open heart surgery, because I try and do it without taking the whole car apart. So I'm kind of prizing. But the real reason the Lotus had been in stock for a while was that Michael Fassbinder has arrived. He's in the building.
He's green and he's matte.
And it's green and he's matte, and it's. I'm very fond of this particular Carrera model, because I think this is my third or fourth one in various liveries. This is probably rocketed to the top of the list of my favourite one. I think it is extremely well executed. But anyway, so green. If last week was all about brown cars, this week is about green ones. But we won't go on about that. So yeah, I had a nice trip. So we went to Gagemaster, picked up the cars, had a look around. People have a look at Gagemaster's website if you like. It's not a great website, but there's a few pictures. It's basically a warehouse with a big showroom shop on the front. And there's a corner of slot cars, not much more, and there's a little bit of a wall of plastic kits like Airfix. And then the entire place is just full, floor to ceiling, of model railway stuff in every conceivable scale, and it's amazing. And they import Japanese stuff, and it's just... You can spend an hour in there just going, wow, look at the detail on that, and look at the tiny vampires, because there's a company who makes figures in various tiny scales, and they include tiny vampires and tiny zombies, and I think they're a German company, so there's lots of tiny naked people as well, but we won't go into that.
Yes. Is that Shrek?
No, I think it is.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, because I know Pendles had those figures, German railway figures for 32nd scale, and there were inordinate numbers of bikinis being put on or taken off.
What's quite funny with the naughty ones, the packet has got a sort of a little window, and let's say there's a chair, and then the rest is covered up with a sort of, something. But there's a sort of little stick diagram of what the figures might be doing, and so not much is left to the imagination. But the one which is most
railway people.
It's crazy. But I mean, I've heard of passing the time while you're waiting for a train, but I never thought of... Anyway, the one which had me in fits was the one which was a bed with some indentations on it, and then presumably the figures match up with the indentations. However, nothing. So I'm sure slot. Mind you, I've got a nightclub on my layout, so I suppose it's not too far of a stretch. Anyway, dear listener, can you tell that we've made no attempt to script the beginning of this one whatsoever?
Well, no, we've got the green cars, and
we've got green cars.
I'm not a
you're looking
Carrera fan, as you know, but that green one is going to arrive at some point. I've actually made a plan to get 4 Carrera GTs for the club, and have a Carrera GT class, modern GT class, because they just make the cars that compete right now. So there's no argument about it.
I went with my friend David, who's got a wonderful 4-lane polycar track upstairs in his house. Lovely. He got rid of the children and converted it into a slot car room, which I think is what every man should do. Anyway, we went back there afterwards, had a run with the car, and he dug it. He's one to get advice from, because he sets up his cars very nicely, and they're all reasonably matched actually. So he dug out a BMW M6 Carrera GT, which lapping straight away faster than mine was out the box, and it was on standard tyres and things. So whatever witchcraft he does to them, I think he does a bit. I think he does a bit of, whisper it, chassis shaving. You know, I think
Does he?
There's a bit of that going on.
Chassis shaving. Yeah.
Chassis shaving. Now, before we, oh, you go.
I was going to say, Wasp will be receiving orders for its guide converters, for one thing. They seem to be a fairly essential piece of kit to bring some joy back to the world of Carrera.
Oh, you're so harsh. You really are. I was blasting this round Davis track, just literally out the box, magnet out. That was all, and it never deslotted. But that's Polycar.
Yeah, it's nice, smooth track.
Nice,
Come
smooth,
to Farnborough Park.
smooth track.
Yeah,
smooth.
exactly.
Smooth is the way. You know, all
crushing
that
disappointment as the wibbly wobbly, not deep enough thing. Let's go halfway round a corner.
I think we should start a fundraising campaign to replace the Ninko with Polycar. I think it would be a revelation.
Yeah, anything other than bumps, lumps, and whatever. But, you know,
yeah, it is what
same for everyone.
It's what it is. Anyway, so I wasn't going to go straight to what caught your eye, because you literally seconds before we started recording, you sent me a picture of what had caught your eye.
Everything that's caught my eye has been old-fashioned and very expensive this week.
Okay, that's just because it knows, the algorithm knows you're staying in a hotel in Monaco, and it say this man needs to see more very expensive slot cars.
Seriously, the guy in the presidential suite would look at some of these things and go, "It's a bit much."
Give us a for instance then. What was the
so what they call them? It begins with O, not Oliphant. That's something from The Hobbit, isn't it?
Austero?
No. Anyway, first of all, Hobby Classic has done the Bugatti Royale, which was for many years the most expensive car ever, both when it was brand new in the 30s, and then when people started sort of buying and selling classic cars, it just was immediately top of the chart, wasn't it? And so they've made a slot version.
And it's suitably, is it 1/32 of a very expensive price?
It's suitably opulent. I mean, when I sent you the photo, you thought it was a die-cast, didn't you?
Yeah.
And it could well be a 1/18 die-cast when you see the photo of it. And interestingly, it also comes with the Type 35 pedal car with a child in it, which also has a motor and a guide. Why?
That's why. Well, because they can, I think, is the short answer.
I suppose.
But you see, it appeals to me. I mean, I think it's the same sort of, I've got a lunar buggy slot car. Why will I have? And why make a submarine Lotus Esprit? So I think that it fits. That kind of. No, I think that would be quite in a kind of having your own Goodwood Festival of Speed or revival interval moment where something parades around just for the crowd to look at. Then having a tiny Bugatti with a small child in it. But can you remember the price, or is that what you're frantically looking up?
No. I haven't seen the price because they've just announced that after a period of
they're doing it
relative inactivity, where they only really produce chassis for other people's cars to tune them up, or the super big Group A Mercedes 190 body to go onto the slotted DTM 190 chassis. Which makes it just huge. But, Hobby Classic was sort of saying, apologies for the delay to new products, here's what we've got, and it's just this stunning image. So it will be coming soon, it will be resin, it will be a catastrophic amount of money for the average slotter. And that's based on its Modelant that has produced this Ferrari 250 Testarossa. It is in the livery of Mike Hawthorne at the Targa Florio in 1958. It's, a fairly simple thing. It's basic red with the number 102 and Hawthorne sitting on the left-hand side. But that is 250 of your euros. 250 euros.
Or 5 Scalextrics or 5 Carrera. That's if we use the current
Exactly.
exchange rate. I think 50 quid is a basic slot car. So it's 5. You could have that or 5 other cars.
Yeah, or you could dig around on to auction sites until you found an Inco one, get a can of red paint and a driver figure, and have your own sort of fun. Yeah, obviously the Inco Testarossa doesn't really look that much like a Testarossa, whereas this one does, which is obviously an advantage if you're in that market. If it's worth that much to you, great, enjoy it. I'm just not sure. I mean, obviously I build resin kits and sometimes race them. Usually just sort of sit there worrying about it. But if I'd spent €250 in one hit, then I'd certainly be worried about doing
Well, there's a question that sometimes crosses my mind, and I put it. What's two questions? Two parts to the question. What's the most you've ever paid for a slot car, roughly? Mrs. Garton isn't watching. You're all right.
Do you know the most expensive? I still haven't finished building it, so there still isn't a cost attached. Is my Vieria 71 Ford Granada, which was €69 for the kit, and then obviously you need to add wheels, motor, axles, gears, guide, etc., etc., etc. So that's going to be well over £100 when it's done. Yeah, but I've spread that out over 3 years, so basically it's £30 a year. It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah. So when that one's done, I think that's still the most expensive one. Oh, I did buy. Yeah, it is, because I bought Racer Ferrari P4s. I bought 3 of them as kits, but that was when they were sort of expiring as a range on Pendle, I think, and they were on discount. But even so, back then, which would be 2008, I think. You know, they were still £50 each, so it was still quite a hefty investment. But then again, I was earning a lot more in 2001.
And kits as well, you see. I thought so. The second part of the question is, when you've got an existing car, which maybe cost a perfectly reasonable amount of money when you bought it, but it's now worth north 3 figures, say, and I'm thinking Spirit BMWs here.
Yes,
just as a off the top of my head. And I know the answer is you happily race them at the club, so you risk them. But my question is there something which you've got which has now become potentially so valuable that you think, oh...
Well, there was until last week, yes. I had the pink Scalextric Mini.
Oh, I thought we'd inadvertently stumbled into a tragedy there.
Well, it's a tragedy for people who collect Scalextric cars mint in box, I suppose, is that there is now one fewer of, I think, the quite rare pink Mini Cooper Classic with flowers on it, driven by 2 thugs. Oddly. But it's now been pulled apart and spray painted black. It's got Aston Martin DB5 rear lights on it, and it's got John Lennon in the passenger seat. So
it's potentially more valuable, I would say, to you, certainly.
Certainly to me it is, yeah.
It is. Again, I'll post some pictures, because I think you've pretty much finished it, haven't you? You've been posting some pictures.
I need to add the spotlights on the front and the Webasto sunroof from a piece of black card, which I can sort of fold and flatten and, yeah, all that sort of stuff. And then it's about there, and then... oh, sorry, it's going to go muted again as I have my silent coughing fit. Lawrence has got my decal paper because my printer doesn't do water slide transfers, sadly. So he's going to print those off for me, the registration plates. He's got so many registration plates coming for all the professionals' cars and all that sort of stuff. I have to sit and very gnomishly do them letter by letter on a Word document, taking them off the proper font because I don't have Photoshop or anything like that.
All right, so there's a gap in the market for a make your own Scalextric registration plate app.
Well, George Turner sells period letters, but I can never make them work. They're too small and fiddly, and I never get them seated and dry enough to put another letter on next to the one that's already on. So they just all end up in a horrible mess, sliding all over the decal sheet. And I'm like, no, this is stupid. Do it yourself. So that's what I'm doing.
Jolly good. Well, Well, that's sort of, yeah, I've got something. If you've got any more pictures of the Mini, send them to me. So and that's going to be part of a feature that you're doing for Motorsport, isn't it? So have you got? When's the deadline for that? When have you got to?
It's a couple of weeks from now.
Okay. So probably round about. Well, given the print deadlines for monthly magazines, that'll be out sometime at Easter, probably.
Yeah, well, I mean, the editor sort of said, "Oh, can you do a little piece about your stock cars and your club and why you do what you do?" I said, "Yeah, fine, no problem." And it's got to be in within a month, but then there's no telling when it's going to be in the mag. It's just one of their reserve ones, space fillers. You know, here's some pretty cars that have been made, and here's middle-aged men playing with toy cars.
Nothing wrong with that. And we don't call them beardy weirdies. Well, we do, but anyway. I'm thinking of generating a talking out a slot bingo card where there are certain sort of phrases and words so that the listeners can play along at the show. They can sort of so.
Well, yeah, I mean, there will be a full for that feature. There will be 4 Beatles Radford conversions done. I've got all the right paint, and I've got these set of 1/32 Beatle figures. And I'm lopping the heads off them as and when needed and sticking them on the Scalextric driver figure.
Okay. I was going to say if you got Beatles figures, but that sounds... Now, this actually is ringing. Was an aged memory suddenly into my head has popped that there was a now very expensive set of Beatles figures, but actually, my head is correct, it was for Subutio. You could buy a set of Subutio Beatles. Which are now, as you can imagine, rarer. They're not as just literally as a band standing. Were they playing instruments? My memory suggests they were. I haven't got them. I mean, I have a lot of other Subutio things, but I haven't got Beatles. But anyway, I digress. That's a whole other podcast. There are several of those, but never mind. What in terms of what's caught my attention, morely it's the things I've picked up. My green cars, which having got back yesterday, I haven't yet tried to prise the magnet out of the Lotus, but I've got that and the Brabham to race prepare, i.e. remove the magnet from. I've done it to all the other classics, and it always makes them better. Encouragingly, although how long it lasts, the tyres, and I'm stroking them as I speak. Feel quite soft and sort of tacky. Now, what that means about their life expectancy, I don't know, but it means that it should grip quite nicely. So, I'll be interested to see. And I know that Anthony Rowland's done a kit which is a chassis to take polycar running gear for this car. So it'll be sooner or later somebody will do a twin test, I'm sure, which is the standard car versus the one with the different chassis in it. I honestly can't see it being that different, but then that's my chassis engineering. I think the biggest difference is the guide. If I hold that up here, the guide is here rather than here. So it has a very short guide to rear axle distance. Yeah, and so what else have you been slotting? Or
I mean, what else has caught my eye is the fact that Pendle's now got the Ferrari 246 Dino kit back in stock. It's the old Mac Pinch's pre-ad, I think was his thing. Pre-wing is Mel Alt, pre-ad was the latent and much missed Mac Pinch's, who produced a range of pre- and post-war Grand Prix cars right when Slot Forum was starting up, sort of early 2000s. And they became a thing. They became a way for people to sort of get into scratch building. And now Pendle's got a lot of the moulds, and it's sort of brightened up and jazzed up the 58 Ferrari, which is probably my favourite Formula One car. So the Hawthorne Collins 58 championship winning car. It's very small when you look at it next to a Van Wall and a Maserati, which are probably the main competitors. And Pete Shepard's just done the sort of show car to show what the new kit looks like when it's all assembled. And Pete's builds are beautiful, and it's rather tempting, really, all things considered. So that's caught my eye, as has another Pioneer Camaro. Because you just apparently
Another
can't
one.
have too many. Another one.
Well, Pioneer certainly can't. Before we move on from that build that you were talking about, and I will find the picture, because one of the scary things in slot modeling is drivers' eyes, where manufacturers make an attempt to put eyes in, and they're usually terrified or look as though they're having a very abrupt examination. But he has painted very realistic-looking eyes with whites and pupils inside goggles. So the goggles haven't got glass on them, I don't think, but there are moulded goggles. And there's a close-up, and close-ups of hand-painted things in 1/32 are pretty cruel because you're blowing it up, a lot. This thing looks fantastic, and what is really good, and I don't know whether it's moulded that way or he's done it that way. Let's give him the credit. That the head has a slight tilt to one direction, but the eyes are kind of looking. So there's some life there. There's some animation. It's not this kind of stuck at 90 degrees staring there. So I don't know how he did it. Witchcraft. Maybe he's got one of those machines that you can shrink Raquel Welch. I don't know. But it's fantastic. It's fantastic, to use the obvious word, fantastic. No, I mean, that's the skill in that is amazing.
Yeah, I for the figures in the Beetle Mini, and John, by accident, I got quite right, and then I'm converting the existing Scalextric figure to try and look like Magic Alex, their sort of assistant that used to drive John around a lot, and I thought, oh, that looks okay, and then went close up, took a picture, and the eyes were down here on his cheeks. He looked like the bad guy at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I was like, no, this is terrible. So I had to repaint it and do it again. And it now doesn't look as good to me, but at least his eyes are actually in the sockets and not halfway down his cheeks.
I was going to say, I think Magic Alex was prone to not being entirely sober, so that probably wasn't a bad look.
Yes, well, they are very large and black, and he does look completely off his gourd. So yeah.
Is he the one? I would flicking about. Is he the guy that they paid a fortune for building a studio in Apple HQ?
Yes. And it didn't work
when they bought the building, and it basically nothing. He had absolutely had as much idea about wiring a plug as anything else, and they gave this guy, I don't know, at the time, I can't remember, it was hundreds of thousands of pounds. It's a great. I'm going to presume you have watched the Get Back. The documentary. Yeah, it's fantastic. It is very good. In terms of slots, I haven't really seen anything else that's kind of. It felt like maybe because of my keen anticipation.
Are they girding their loins for
Christmas?
Do you think? Are they waiting to unleash?
Well,
you've seen the Jerry Marshall Esprit though, haven't you? And the driver figure that
I have. Well, this is the interesting thing. Going to a bricks and mortar shop, as our American listeners call them, is always an interesting and dangerous experience because you see stuff. And sometimes you think, oh, it's not as good as I thought it was going to be. And sometimes the reverse happens. And that was the case with that racing Esprit. The Esprits were announced and I thought, yeah, fine. And the various Bond ones came out and I thought, yeah, fine. Don't really think much of those. This one in the race livery looked great. And I was sorely tempted to add it to the pile. But I was already buying 2 cars, so that was enough for one day. But I'll be looking out for, hopefully, when those get a little bit older and they get a little bit discounted, because, and maybe over optimistically, my original feeling was, who's going to want a racing Esprit? That's a kind of niche. But it looks great. It does look good. What else was interesting down at Gauge Master? When I pre-order stuff, they kind of keep it behind in the warehouse and you go and get it. And the guy came back and he said there's a lot of stuff. They said they had a delivery, particularly from Carrera, and they said there's a huge number of Carrera sets. And I said, ready for Christmas then. So I guess even though it's mid-October, those bigger retailer stroke wholesaler guys are getting in more and more, all the sets now to sell for Christmas. I don't know what percentage of the market is. I would imagine overall for people like Scalextric and Carrera, 80% of their sales are probably Christmas related, I guess. I'm completely guessing. I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
I
We need to get
suppose
Simon
gonna
on the phone.
We'll get Simon, and you know, we have a contact in Carrera. I won't name him, but he'll send me a message and tell me you're talking rubbish again. Only he'll do it in an Austrian accent. So so I'll send it to you. You're the one who does the good Austrian accent. You know, that's,
The louder accent.
I can barely do a good Scottish one, so that's limited to that. But so Christmas is coming. That means two things, doesn't it? It means that sort of the shops are full of all sorts of rubbish would rather they weren't. But more importantly, we're getting close to having to make our mind up about Slot Car of the Year. I mean, it's now within reach, and so what would be? I'll put you on the spot. No chance to think about it. What would be your top 3 contenders for Slot Car of the Year so far?
So far, I would say Scalextric Rover.
Does it count? Is it just a re-livery, or does it count? I'll let you have it though. Is it just a re-livery?
No, it's new out this year.
Was the Bastos car not last year? Was it this year? Time flies when you're having fun. We'll let it in anyway. Okay, Bastos Rover.
Bastos Rover was February, March time.
All right.
Top 3. If it's how talked about it was, then the BRM Shadow. Well, not BRM. Mr. Slotcar, wasn't it?
Yes.
The Mr. Slotcar Shadow.
I'll go and check how many are still in stock.
Yeah. And then for me, although I haven't seen it and tried it yet, the new Slotted Porsche 956 short tails, not the 962 Just tail, but the redoing of the old 956, because there's going to be some stuff that Maurizio have done to that, because there always is. There's a chamfer here, there's a bit of weight off there, it's going to be quick. And it's still going to be a 956. So for me, that one is of great interest. But I would also probably, if it's not that one, it's the Scale Auto Lancers, because they just look edible, and they actually look like the cars that they are modelled on, unlike some rally cars at the moment. And
What do you mean? What do you mean?
There's just some odd-looking beasts around at the moment, aren't there? Naming no names.
Well, I would naming no names. Don't do that. Don't. I haven't got a lawyer. Remember. I would. I'd have to. Having convinced me that the Rover was this year, then yes, I would put that high up on my list. But I always think I'm biased, which I am. Yes, the Scale Auto. I'm going to reserve judgment on the Scale Auto Mitsubishi because I have a fear that it's a bit big. And I think when we get it, so it's hard to tell when you'll ever see pictures of it on its own. But I think it might be a bit big. But we'll see. And then I can't think of another one. Having asked my own question, I can't think which one has been. Oh, well, I'm more and again, the best car is the most recent one, but not quite. The Scalextric Escort WRC, the Repsol livery. Okay. That car looks lovely, goes nicely. Just that kind of ticks a lot of boxes for me. I was cheating. Well, I'm talking about something people can't see, but we're going to try and work on how to do it. But I was watching a chap doing something on construction kits where he's got an axis for I think it was ease of build and complexity of parts sort of thing for kits. And I thought, there's something like that. We should do that for slot cars. We should do, how accurate it is versus how fast it is, or how expensive. We'll think of the axes. In fact, if anybody suggestions for axes, put them in the comments, and then we can start plotting, because I think it'll be interesting to plot out where a car might fall of going. Yes, it's really accurate, but it's dead slow, or it doesn't. It goes really quickly, but it doesn't look.
Regarding us or the car?
Well, I don't look very good and I'm dead slow, so I think that's easy to plot.
Yeah, we're not very accurate and we're dead slow.
Slow, yeah. So I can plot that without too much trouble. Oh dear. So another Christmas related question then. So you're writing your letter to Santa because you've been a good boy, and what would you put? What slot thing would you? And we're going to be realistic because the chances of you getting a Bugatti with a smaller Bugatti are
chances of me
possibly
getting anything are fairly slender, if I'm honest about it. Normally, I have to buy these things for myself. I think the last person... my birthday this year. My best friend, who I used to race slot cars with when we were like 8, who I haven't seen for a couple of years, and he came to my 50th birthday, and he brought me the Scalextric Gulf liveried Aston DBS.
There you go.
Which is actually a really nice car out of the box. I've been a bit harsh, really, about the looks of the thing, and the fact that a bit more Mustang than Aston Martin, possibly. But it was a really nice gesture, and it's because Jake is a big Jerry Marshall fan. And we used to watch Jerry in that DBS that he used to chuck around the place. At the same time, he was racing his Esprit. So, probably I would stick the ICS Jerry Marshall Capri on my Christmas list as a please, can somebody buy this for me, because I can't really justify £53.
Capri, you mean Esprit, not Capri?
Esprit, not Capri. Yes, sorry.
Unless you've got some inside knowledge of the Scalextric product range.
No, I haven't. I did when because Gregor Marshall, Jerry's son, said, "Oh, we've got a Scalextric car coming out." And I went, "Oh, is it the Capri?" Thinking, what's relatively recent in the catalogue? No, you'll never guess. And sure enough, it was the Esprit.
The Esprit.
So yes, but we can ask Simon for some old Vauxhalls next.
Forenzas.
Yes.
What do you think the chances of that are?
I'd say slim to none. But George Turner's got a beautiful kit, which I am going to invest in before the end of this year.
Okay, I would. There's a timeline if you go back, and particularly when Steve, who's now Staff Slots, but when he was importing SCX, and he exerted some influence on the product plan at SCX. We got lovely Mark II Escort rally cars with lots of British drivers and things. And we got the Sunbeam Lotus as well, which was whether it was him or not, I credit him with leading that way. But the one I think the extrapolating not too far would have been a Chevette HSR. Now there wouldn't have been many liveries, but that would just complete that little triptych of Escort, Sunbeam, and the Chevette would be lovely.
It's always a pleasure when I'm doing historic rallies if a Chevette turns up. And one actually was in Jersey last weekend for the Jersey rally, and it was original period colours, but it looked like a canal boat. It was bottle green with red and gold handwritten lettering on it, and it was like, okay, it's a rally car / canal boat, but it was still a Chevette, so it was really cool.
You've triggered both a memory and a slot car related thing. The memory is turning up to, I think it was the 81 British Grand Prix, and in the paddock there was a sign writer man with a paintbrush and a pot of paint, painting on the side of the Lotus cars, because they had up till that point been all blue and Essex sponsored, and from that race they somehow or other got back John Player Special, and the man was hand painting the John Player Special down the side of the car, awesome. Even in the paddock, and somewhere I think I've got a photograph of that. I'll have to dig it out, but which triggers a slot car related thing, of course, because Fly's latest release is a very clever niche. I got to credit Fly; they find niches, but this one is unexpected. Which is, it's a Porsche 917 Longtail in not quite Martini livery, and the reason I say not quite, because the whole essence of the model is it's not been finished being painted, and this would seem to be based entirely on a period snap of a man applying paint to the car in real life. So it's a Fly Porsche 917 in an incomplete livery.
Wow.
And I'm just struggling to get. I mean, maybe maybe just what I've just said about that fond memory of a Lotus in the paddock. Maybe there's people with the fond memory. I don't know. But,
I did once suggest that to get more liveries out of the March 761, they could have one with wet tyres on and a footprint on the side pod because it was a bit mucky in the paddock that day, and Ronnie Peterson had to stand in a puddle to get to the car. Because they're getting down to that sort of detail, aren't they? To keep these same molds coming.
I think it's in the 2024 release list, actually, that one. And if it wasn't half an hour ago, it is now. No, I mean, it's, sweat those moulds, but I do, a model of an unfinished car is... And it's not like it remained unfinished. It's not famous for being unfinished. It just wasn't finished. So it opens. If that sells really well, then basically the entire back catalogue can be slightly deliveried and sold that way. Anyway, we'll see.
Carrera hope with the new NASCARs, doesn't it? Because not only do you have cars with multiple liveries per season, but sometimes they change from one day to the next on odd races. So I've seen them do it overnight. The car goes into the pit garage and then they show all the guys ripping the wrap off and sticking the new wrap on. Could have one half and half.
Half
with
and
a
half.
little figure of a man with a heat gun.
A heat gun. And if it was a Hobby Classic version, the heat gun would actually work.
Yes, you'd have to plug it in.
What could possibly go wrong? Yeah. Self-melting toy cars. That would be good. Right, before we get any more libelous, we probably want to pull a halt. Is there anything you're bursting to tell? I think, if possible, we should. Can you give us a view from your balcony? Because none of us.
I will take you outside. I'm very excited because my friend in Spain, Rodrigo, who produces 3D printed bodies, I'd completely forgotten that a long time ago, springtime, I'd asked him to have a look at a couple of bodies for me, and he's now produced them. So they're on their way. I did actually pay him some euros as well back in March. And so I've now got a Citroen Mahari and a BMW 328, the pre-war version, coming. So, yeah, those are quite exciting.
That's very interesting. I'm surprised the 328 hasn't been done by somebody before, actually. But I think
Hobby Classic did it, and it was about £300. So, and also there was Love Speed, who did the pre-war Mille Miglia cars, including the Porsche that never raced, the smoothed-out Beetle and the BMW 328. So if I turn around here like this, you can see the Casino.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And a building site, because obviously we're out of season.
So just to kind of orientate, so that the actual hairpin, or what even older listeners would call the Gasworks hairpin. Is it the Gasworks?
Oh, no,
the Gasworks, the other one. Yeah,
there.
So the station, wasn't it? It was the station hairpin, then it became Lowe's Hotel.
Yeah.
And everything. So it's basically you're on the other side of the building from the track, and you walk out the door.
You come out of the front door of the hotel, and there is the station / Lowe's / Fairmont, as it now is, hairpin.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's literally there.
And I guess this far out of racing season, there's no evidence. I guess all the Armco's been taken down and everything's back to normal, is it? Yeah.
Yes, and there was quite an interesting video of somebody attempting to take the hairpin flat out in a very small electric car recently. Did you see that?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
That didn't end well, did it?
I can't believe anyone would do that. I mean, it's so ridiculously small and tight and steep and downhill. And the TV cameras never capture it in the same way they never captured Brands Hatch properly. But yeah, that's where we are. And next week I'll be back in green, leafy, damp. Sorry.
Well, it's certainly less leafy because they're falling rapidly, but never mind. It's heating up. Right, listen, I have a good event with your electric what's-its. Safe.
We've got a star
travels.
driver too, Stefano Modena.
No, really?
Yes.
He was the man who never quite, isn't he?
He is, yes. He's now the 60-year-old man who never quite that's driving an electric car.
Wow. Oh well, yes, you've suddenly brought back all sorts. So he was the bright young thing that there's probably a story behind it. Probably in some magazine that I've yet to read because there's piles of them lying behind me. Anyway, enough of me waffling on. As we always say, if you've listened this far, thank you very much. We appreciate it. If you've got any comments on the things we've got wrong, please feel free to email me. If you've got any suggestions for what you'd like us to get wrong in the future, please feel free to email me. And if you're working for a slot car company, we're happy to provide consultation services for free cars. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
Right. Nothing much really. I'll say goodbye from leafy England.
And I'll say goodbye from the Côte d'Azur. Au revoir.